Among God's greatest gifts to us are our children. They are the hope of our future. Love impels us to reach out to them, to nurture them with great tenderness as they reach towards maturity. And yet, despite our best efforts, there is one nightmare which no child should have to face and no parent should have to worry about. I speak about child sexual abuse. It happens in the most unlikely places and is committed by people we fully expected to be trustworthy. It happens in daycare centers, in our schools, in our youth programs, in our homes, and in churches of every faith. The stories you are about to hear are disturbing, but unless we bring child sexual abuse out into the open, we cannot hope to protect those we love the most, our children.
I tried to kill myself when I was 15. I just didn't want to go on living. I hated myself. I blamed myself. I just thought it was unbearable, the pain. It was just unbearable.
They come to us with open hearts, with a trust so honest it warms our hearts and lights our lives. They are the most vulnerable among us. They are our children. As parents, teachers, and clergy, God gave them to us to love, guide, and protect. It is up to us to show them the greatness of God's love, the power of forgiveness through His Son, Jesus Christ, and the strength and love of the Holy Spirit. The world in which we live today is dangerous, and the church community, as a living, vibrant part of society, is vulnerable. A perpetrator can be anyone, anywhere.
I was victimized as the first child as closely as I can recall when I was 10 and he was 5. He was a neighborhood child who looked up to me, and I took advantage of that to lure him into a field behind our parents' house and trick him, manipulate him, force him to take his clothes off.
When a child becomes the victim of sexual abuse, it's always a tragedy, and a serious tragedy, but even more so when it involves the church. It's more tragic because that person, first of all, represents the church, and for the young child, represents God. And so many times we know psychologically that the child cannot make a difference between seeing that coming from God and the church. I also believe that at times we as a church must be honest in saying that we have made mistakes, and that is evidenced in the history of some of the cases that have been dealt with in the United States. And we must be honest that sometimes the accusation that these cases have not been handled in a way that has been effective, in a way that has been just, must be admitted. But thank God we have come a long way, and we have learned so much.
Child molesters rely on their power over children to control them.
He would always talk to my mom and me at church, and my mom always thought he was so nice. And yeah, he'd have me over to his house to play with his kids and spend the night. And before bedtime, he always wanted me to take a bath. And then he'd start. And I couldn't move. You know, I tried to scream or do something. I just couldn't do anything, you know. And so what I did was I tried to distract myself by looking at different things like the faucet on the bathtub, or, you know, the little cracks on the walls. I just like look at the cracks in the walls, or I look behind, try to imagine what's behind the cracks in the walls, just to get my mind off of it, just to get my mind out of my body for a minute. And then he'd leave. And I'd go to bed, shivering, and I'd try to fall asleep just to forget about it all, but I couldn't.
Even though they were young, I treated them as though they were much older emotionally. And that was, of course, that was part of my rationale and my justification for telling myself it's not that bad. I really care about them. They love me, I love them.
Abuse of children from someone they trust so openly has terrible consequences. A child's life can suffer profound and long-term effects.
It's not something you just get over. You just don't get over it. It's not that simple. I mean, I tried to kill myself. I thought that everyone that looked at me knew that my manhood was gone. I felt dirty, used, disgusting.
He's had trouble with relationships with girlfriends. From what I understand, he's had some violence in those relationships, because I feel certain that he's got an enormous amount of anger because of what I did to him. He also has trouble trusting other people, too. He's had trouble holding down a job. He's gotten involved with drugs and gangs, and possibly alcohol also. I'm not sure about that. And he's just now in his early 20s now also. So one of the terrible things is not just what he's gone through so far, but this is only, the beginning of his life.
Child sexual abuse can be stopped before it starts, and you, as a member of the Catholic faith, can have a role in protecting all of our children.
Ideally, I'd like to see every adult in the Catholic Church protecting children. This is certainly a way to bring God's love to all children, and that's the purpose of the Catholic Church. I'd like to see it so open in our education that it's just a common, ordinary thing.
To protect children, we must separate the facts from the myths. Child sexual abuse happens in all income, racial, ethnic, and other demographic groups, and sex offenders do not fall into one certain category. It is a myth that strangers are responsible for most child sexual abuse.
The fact is, most sex offenders are known and trusted by the parents or guardians of the children that they molest, and trusted by the children themselves.
It is a myth that most sex abusers are homosexuals.
Most sex offenders are not homosexual. They are heterosexual.
It is a myth that children usually lie about sexual abuse.
Most children are not lying when they say they've been sexually abused. 5% or less of all allegations are intentionally false.
And it is a myth that priests abuse children because of their vow of celibacy.
Most sex offenders have never taken a vow of celibacy. Those few priests who molest children do not molest children because of their vows of celibacy. They molest children for the same reasons that other sex offenders do.
You can stop this evil from hurting your children. You can stop it from spreading in your parish, in your neighborhood, and in your world.